All right, so we're filling out the Unit 18 notes. We did slide 2 and 3 already. Now we're doing this video to get the 5 fingers of evolution. Okay.
The 5 fingers of evolution. A thorough understanding of biology requires a thorough understanding of the process of evolution. Most people are familiar with the process of natural selection. However, this is just one of 5 processes that can result in evolution. Before we discuss all 5 of these processes, we should define evolution. Evolution is simply change in the gene pool over time. But what is a gene pool? And for that matter, what is a gene? Before spending any more time on genetics, let us begin with a story. Imagine that a boat capsizes and 10 survivors swim to shore on a deserted island. They are never rescued and they form a new population that exists for thousands of years. Strangely enough, 5 of the survivors have red hair. Red hair is created when a person inherits 2 copies of the red gene from their parents. If you only have 1 copy of the gene, you won't have red hair. To make this easier, we will assume that the 5 non-redheads are not carriers of the gene. The initial frequency of the red hair gene is therefore 50%, or 10 of 20 total genes. These genes are the gene pool. The 20 different genes are like cards in a deck that keep getting reshuffled with each new generation. Sex is simply a reshuffling of the genetic deck. The cards are reshuffled and passed to the next generation. The deck remains the same, 50% red. The genes are reshuffled and passed to the next generation. The gene pool remains the same, 50% red. Even though the population may grow in size over time, the frequency should stay at about 50%. If this frequency ever varies, then evolution has occurred. Evolution is simply change in the gene pool over time. Think about it in terms of the cards. If the frequency of the cards in the deck ever changes, evolution has occurred. There are 5 processes that can cause the frequency to change. To remember these processes, we will use the fingers on your hand, starting from the little finger and moving to the thumb. The little finger should remind you that the population can shrink. If the population shrinks, then chance can take over. For example, if only 4 individuals...
Shrinking population. That will go on our pinky finger. So if for some reason the population shrinks, that could affect that frequency, right?
Individuals survive an epidemic, then their genes will represent the new gene pool. The next finger is the ring finger. This finger should remind you of mating because a ring represents a couple. If individuals choose a mate based on their appearance or location, the frequency may change. If redheaded individuals only mate with redheaded individuals, they could eventually form a new population. If no one...
So I want you to add non-random to that. Non-random mating. Non-random. If we think about how we mate, and especially how, even more in the animal world, how they mate. They don't just mate with any old organism, right? Like birds, what do they have? Mating dances, mating calls. Yes, they're in colors. There are some male birds that will like make a nice pretty nest to try to get the female bird to come in the nest, right? And there's lots and lots of others. Actually, spiders do a similar thing. Spiders have mating dances as well, some of them. Yeah, some of them. Actually, if you've ever seen peacock spider mating, but maybe we'll have time to watch it. But they actually have like a mating dance they do too. Also, some spiders, you know how females will have like this nice, beautiful web? The male has to walk on the web in a specific way. And if he like walks in a specific way, she'll let him come close. If he doesn't, then she will eat him. So this might change the frequency, right? Only the spiders that know how to do the right dance or the right walking is going to influence the mating. And even in humans, okay? we have preferences. We have things we choose to look for in a mate. Yes. So I think, so what we found is that even behaviors can be genetic traits. Like, you know how butterflies fly from like California to Mexico? That migration pattern is genetically inherited. So if a butterfly has a mutation that affects their route, they're not going to survive, right? They're going to end up in like East Coast and they're not going to survive. So same thing with like these mating dances as well. It's a genetic thing that is expressed in a behavioral way.
One ever mates with redheaded individuals, these genes could decrease. The next finger is the middle finger. The M in the middle finger should remind you of the M in the word mutation.
What are we writing for the middle finger? Mutation. Hello. That's okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, we can, is this on the floor back there? Thank you. Our tank for the bearded dragon. I only have one. So the second step is for us to find a counter to put him on. Okay, let's keep going. Ready? We got mutation? Shh.
If a new gene is added through mutation, it can affect the frequency. Imagine a gene mutation creates a new color of hair. This would obviously change the frequency in the gene pool. The pointer finger should remind you of movement. If new individuals flow into an area or immigrate, the frequency will change.
We're going to call that gene flow. You can put movement if you like. This fancy word, thank you guys. The fancy word is going to be gene flow. Because what's moving? The genes. The genes are flowing from one place to another. So kind of like how a mutation can bring a new allele to a population, gene flow also can bring a new allele to the population, changing the frequency. Okay, let's keep going.
If individuals flow out of an area or emigrate, then the frequency will change. In science, we refer to this movement as gene flow. All four of the processes represented by our fingers can cause evolution: small population size, non-random mating, mutations, and gene flow.
Okay, we got that. Right. What is the thumb? A hint is we are the only organism that has a special thumb. Opposable. What is opposable? You can touch all your other fingertips with it. That gives us dexterity, makes us so we can become surgeons. What is our thumb? What could we call it? It is an appendage. The fact that we have this awesome appendage, that makes us in some ways superior to other organisms. Anybody? It's an A word.
Awesome. Appendage.
Oh. You guys, when you hear it, you're gonna be like, oh. No? Who said that? Kalia? Nice job.
However, none of them lead to adaptation. Natural selection is the only process that creates organisms better adapted to their local environment. I use the thumb to remember this process. Nature votes thumbs up for adaptations that will do well in their environment and thumbs down to adaptations that will do poorly. The genes for individuals that are not adapted for their environment will gradually be replaced by those that are better adapted. Red hair is an example of one of these adaptations. Red hair is an advantage in the northern climates because the fair-skinned allowed ancestors to absorb more light and synthesize more vitamin D. Thumbs up. However, this was a disadvantage in the more southern climates where increased UV radiation led to cancer and decreased fertility. Thumbs down. Even the thumb itself is an adaptation formed through the process of natural selection. The evolution that we have described is referred to as microevolution because it refers to a small change. However, this form of evolution may eventually lead to macroevolution or speciation. Every organism on the planet shares ancestry with a single common ancestor. All living organisms on the planet are connected back in time through the process of evolution. Take a look at your own hand. It's an engineering masterpiece that was created by the 5 processes I just described over millions and millions of years. Can you recall the 5 main causes of evolution from memory?
Shaking, gene flow. I had my thumb out. Non-random dating. I had my thumb out first. Although it did feel really weird. It feels weird. What? Okay. Individuals. Oh, misconception alert. We don't have to write this, but you should know. Make sure you don't have this misconception. Individuals do not evolve, populations do. I already mentioned that. Individuals can acclimate to an area, but that is not usually a genetic change. Yeah.
Me going into like Alaska.
Eventually you'll get used to it.
But to like adapt to that, I'm gonna wear more clothing.
Right. So that's a different sense of the word adapt, right? That's not a genetic adaptation, but we can adapt to things. We adapted to COVID-ish. Mechanisms of evolution. Thank you. Misconception alert. Natural selection is the only one of the mechanisms of evolution. It's not evolution itself. We will often have to focus on natural selection, but you can't have evolution without mutation, because you would never have any new alleles to evolve from. Gene flow is also, like, you can have evolution with just mutation and gene flow. Genetic drift, same kind of idea. Okay, natural selection is like the star of the story, but is not the only part of the story. Okay, natural selection. I should have read stuff here for you. I'm sorry. You should know this whole time. Natural selection is different. Do you have 2 bullet points? Yes. Oh, good. Differential survival and reproduction of individuals with favorable traits. And I like that it says in the current environment. Again, going back to what Xander was saying, if the environment changes, favorable traits may change as well. And we'll actually see an example of that. A very famous example about moths. So industrial revolution changed the environment. So the type of moth that was favorable completely switched. Yes. You're missing that page? I have one right here. Both 2 people? You need a tape one to fix it. Sorry about that. I blame the printer. At least it hole punched. Staple for us.
When I bomb my truck.
Survival of the fittest. Some instructors actually don't love this term. I think it's a great term, just sometimes needs clarification. Again, misconception alert. Fitness, we think of as being like strong and healthy, right? Like good diet, good muscles.
Yes.
That is not necessarily what fitness means. Fitness, you probably should write down the definition of fitness. Okay. Fitness really is the ability to survive and reproduce. You don't have to write, I would say fitness equals ability to survive and reproduce. That was good. You could have all the muscles in the world. Does that guarantee you can find a mate and reproduce with them?
Sometimes. With the wind.
It might give you an advantage. But one thing that kind of comes to mind is I know there's a lot of bodybuilders that I've heard that pass away in like their 30s and 40s. And it's tragic. Right. You can go too far for sure.
They're gonna die in the 30s, but
okay. Can you have pretty weak muscles and be able to survive and reproduce?
Oh.
Sure.
Oh.
I will tell you, when I met Mr. Lazier, he had zero muscles.
Hey, this Lizier's fast.
He,
He's jacked.
don't be
Hey,
mean.
don't disrespect him.
Don't be mean.
You're the one being.
No, I'm telling you a true fact.
Oh.
He was very skinny. It was fine. He was still cute.
He was just lucky.
To me.
He was lucky.
It's nice how much he is caring about his body. Okay, I have to move on. So we have 5 tenets of natural selection that we're going to go into. We kind of had them on the hand, but we're going to go into them in a little bit more depth. But you can use, for this next part of the notes, you can maybe use your hand as a little bit of a hint. Guys, you're not writing all of that, are you? Fitness equals ability to survive and reproduce. That's it. We should be moving on. Okay. There will be a series of pictures. Try and guess what the pictures are representing. I'm going to show you a few pictures, and you want to try to tell me, what does this mean? Are we on the same slide? I think, Manny. We're not going ahead, are we? Okay, just making sure. Okay. Oh.
Why are they so like? Yeah. It's so squishy. Oh, those are the little dandelion things.
Those are all frog eggs, by the way.
Oh, those were eggs. Caviar. Hot box.
First of all, this is outside. Don't you need to be in a box? Oh, don't you think it's cute? A bunch of little baby birds.
Wow.
Spiders!
Not by arachnophobia.
They're so cute. Let's stay here a little longer. Guesses? Guesses?
Random.
Mating? Unrandom mating?
Unrandom mating.
Non-random. Unrandom mating. Actually, the first one is the potential overproduction. I know we didn't have that on our hands.
Oh, yes, overpopulation.
Yes. There is a lot of cases where organisms produce more than can survive.
Yes.
And they kind of, in a way, do that on purpose because they know not all of them are going to survive. Well, they don't know, but like, not all of them are going to survive. Better to have more than less, yes. That's more of a human problem.
Exactly.
In most of the animal world cases, the overpopulation gets dealt with by becoming prey or natural selection. Humans, we came along and we just defied a bunch of the rules and screwed everything up. Okay, so populations can produce more offspring than the environment that can support. You should write that top part. That's fine. So looking at the graphs here, populations have the potential for exponential growth. This is what we are doing currently, right? Humans. We have not leveled off yet. When it will happen, if it will happen, we will see. But real populations in nature, you remember if you were in my freshman class, remember we did the I'm going to say Gorgonzola, but I know it's not that. Gorongosa? Oh, you guys didn't have any freshmen. I'm sorry, you're the last of the Vincent group. Anyway, we did this really cool interactive where we looked at an actual park, a national park in Africa, and we looked at all of their growth patterns and stuff, and we saw that in most real life cases, this is the actual trend of population growth. There might be exponential growth for a while, but then it levels off because of limited resources or usually limited resources. Humans, again, we screw it all up. But
We're like, oh, yes.
most of the time, we reach what's called a carrying capacity. So when populations have that ability to overproduce, but the population can't handle it, right? Then evolution kind of comes in. Okay, not like, again, survival of the fittest. Not all of those baby turtles are going to survive, I hate to say. Right? The slower ones are going to get eaten by the birds. Here's another set of pictures.
What's the snake cat?
I love baby rats. They, at a certain point in their life, they look like baby hippos. I have 3 clutches of baby rats in my life. See, that's me.
Yeah. And then he was like, don't get too attached. I'm gonna feed it to the snake later on.
Or observing. Yeah, I know. I actually used to, some of my students would always want to name them, and I wouldn't let them name them. Because I had one student, she's like, I'll be fine, I'll be fine. And then I fed it, and then she cried. I'm like, see, you're not fine.
Henry, you were gonna look
What
like-
are we noticing about this picture? What's the trend between these 3 pictures? I heard a very key word. Variation. I heard different. Look at the cute snails. That's also very common. Even rats, if they don't feel like they can support all of their babies, they'll eat some of their babies.
You're going back in.
What are we thinking on this one?
Oh, that looks so good.
This leads to this. I feel like I'm hearing it out there, but no, these are all for
Variation.
Natural
This is all
selection.
genetic variation in the population. This is a must. You cannot have evolution without genetic variation. Not possible. Oh, I have your unit 17 notes. If you got a sticker, you got 20 out of 20.
Pass it out.
A lab later, slightly nervous, but actually it's gonna
All
be.
right, pass it out, Mr.
Some of you guys got lower grades because you didn't do the practice problems. In the future, please do not give me an incomplete packet. But I will let you fix your grade if you need to or want to do that. Oh, by the way, progress reports came out today. Yes, we know this. Triad ends Friday. We know this.
Yes.
With the exception of your IA stuff,
Oh,
anything in Triad 1 has to be fixed in Triad 1. Okay? So unit 17 test we'll get back tomorrow and you'll have the week to fix it. Anything you turned in Triad 1 needs to be fixed in Triad 1. Okay? We're going back to that rule. Except for your IA stuff. Okay. Here's another picture. Here, can you cycle through our picture?
just click,
Scroll down.
scroll. Poor buddy.
Aw, you're so cute. Combination.
We're good? Okay, y'all are wrong.
Ooh. That looks very good.
Do we need to see these pictures again? We need to think about what is a trend that is similar for all of us. Go backwards.
Go backwards?
Oh.
Backwards?
Internal
Oh,
conflict.
Backwards.
Look at it. Whoa.
They're all
Fighting.
Go back.
You just play.
Depends on your tests, which will be graded by 6.
Oh. What was it?
No,
Adam?
but yes. You'll have to- Yeah, and then you may not get your text with this week, like try to, but if not, you, that's an acceptable exception. Okay, what are we thinking?
You wanna go back to the fighting?
Territory.
Okay, like fighting. You guys saw some like fighting going on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
Selective pressure.
Easy. Come on.
Aselective pressure. This is one of your syllabus statements. I know for sure. You need to know what is a selective pressure and examples. I don't think you need to write necessarily the examples. Actually,
Yeah.
probably, yeah. It's up to you. If you think it makes sense, and you feel like you could easily make examples in your mind, that's up to you. But for example, like when you saw mouse bobcat, think it. That would be a selective pressure, right? Of somebody trying to eat you is a selective pressure. So you want to be able to get away from that, leading you to probably needing an adaptation. The tree picture. With trees, they actually compete for space all of the time. If you have a little baby tree that's growing on the ground, and then another tree grows faster, that baby tree will die. Because if it can't get enough light, then it won't survive. So there's actually a bunch of trees that will sprout, and not all of them will survive. So a lot of times we think of things in terms of animal examples, but there's also a lot of this going on in the plant world as well. They do. Whichever one can grow faster gets to stay. Right. Somebody said fighting like over territorial competitions. Definitely. I know hippos are actually pretty mean. I heard that one hippo will have like a whole harem. Isn't that what a harem is? A bunch of females that only that hippo gets to be with. And they will fight over not only the harem, but the territory. And then another hippo might come in and be like, I want all of your harem. And they will fight. And whichever one wins gets to take over. There's actually a lot of animals where it's one guy, he gets to mate with all the girls in the area. Okay. If you need the examples, I hate to say you'll have to come back to it. But for example, resources are needed for survival, which are limited. So we're going to compete for food, compete for space, compete for mates, compete, right? Oh, probably not great on the Chromebooks in case he pees again. Okay, sad picture. I'm going to pass it. It's dead polar bear. No. Do you see what we're looking at here? Okay. It's a bug.
Where is it?
Here's his eyeball. Antenna.
Frog?
Do you see the frog?
Where's the frog?
Look
That's
at
actually really
his
good.
eyeball.
Look how muscular the cheetah is.
Do you see two bugs here?
What?
I see a black. I see a black one. There's a
Oh.
fly in there.
Natural selection.
Differential survival and reproduction, which is natural selection, right? The individuals with the most favorable variation will be most likely to survive and reproduce. So in the one where the cheetah was chasing the wildebeest, there were two wildebeests, right? One's probably not going to survive. The other one had some sort of advantage. Maybe it was faster. Maybe it wasn't as fat. Yeah. Maybe it was more agile. Sometimes speed is not the only thing. You also have to be agile. Agility prevents.
No.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I don't know. When you get hurt, what's that called? Injury. Thank you, brain. Right? Isn't that true? Agility prevents injury. That's why yoga is so good for you. Because if you're flexible, you're less likely to get hurt. That's me and my yoga instructor. No, it's true. It's true. All right. Misconception alert. Adaptation does not mean change within a lifetime. We kind of talked about this already, right? Huh? A thick cuticle is an adaptation of a pine needle to survive, not your cuticle, a pine needle cuticle. Okay. We're looking at change in frequencies. Yeah. We're definitely seeing a change in frequency, right? Oh, here's something, phylogeny of COVID-19. I don't really know what any of those symbols mean. Sorry. Favorable variations increase in the population over time. So like I said, in the definition of evolution, we're seeing a change in the frequency of alleles, right? So favorable variations are going to increase in frequency and unfavorable will decrease. Yes, in the population, not in the individual, in the population. Okay, so this is kind of like our sequence of evolution of things that happen. First, overproduction. From that overproduction, we know not all of them are going to survive because it's too much, right? So in that population, there will be variation. And with that overpopulation, where some of the organisms are different than others, there will be a selective pressure, which there are many examples of. And that selective pressure will lead to some organisms surviving, some of them not. And when some survive and some don't, it's because of their adaptations, right? So we see number 5, the frequency of those adaptations, the good ones will increase and the bad ones will decrease. This is like the flow of evolution, we could say. Okay. I do need you for one more second. 2 more seconds. Actually, no. Do not need you any longer. I was gonna give you homework. I changed my mind.
Let's go.
But you guys